Mike, we're standing in a green area, almost in the center of Deltona, 120 acres of green area, surrounded by thousands upon thousands of houses, okay? Tell me what it is about areas like this in urban settings that bears utilize.
Well, first off, it's really good habitat. Bears live in all the habitat that you see around us. And there's a handful of things that bears need in their life. One of them is cover, so here we have the cover. Another one is food. And while they probably can find, a handful of bears can find as much food as they need in this bit of forest surrounded by people, they're really striking out towards the edges, and they're finding all the food they could possibly want in the form of birdseed and garbage and dog food. And then so they're going out into the neighborhoods, they're getting all the calories that they need, and then they're coming back into the forest and using it as cover.
Okay, so you said there were 5 things bears need.
A few.
Okay, a few things. Okay,
Yeah.
cover, food. What else?
Well, there are other things that we adults talk about, for males need
That
females.
season of the year,
Yes, exactly.
okay.
That sort of thing. So you need food and cover and mates and that sort of thing. Basically cover and food are really important to bears.
Okay, now cover up for a large part means, to a bear, means protection, I would think.
Yeah.
Where they can hide.
And it really almost depends, it's different depending on if it's a male or a female. A female bear is going to need cover for a couple of things like their security, their protection. And then they're also going to need a really high quality food environment to raise cubs. And the cover that you're talking about also provides denning habitat. So they need a good thick area of cover where they can have their cubs and raise their cubs that provides both security, food, and habitat, denning cover, everything that they need.
Okay, just going back to the sow, all right, birthing her cubs. How long will a cub be let's say, completely dependent upon the mother, the sow?
Great question. And basically all bears are born sometime around February 1st, give or take a couple of weeks. They're born completely helpless. They're about the size of a soda can. She completely takes care of them in a den, in thick cover like what you see around us, until sometime in about April or so, where the bear cubs are about 5 pounds. Then she'll start to strike out, looking for expanding for food and cover and expanding her territory, with the cubs sort of slowly tagging along behind her. And she'll keep them for an entire year and a half. So she'll teach them everything they need to know, for everything that they need to know for their entire lives in that year and a half.
Okay. The area we're in, for the most part, in one part of it, there is some stormwater retention area that'll have some water in it, but how much water does a bear need? Because the area we're standing in here is very high and has no standing water anywhere around it.
Yeah. Bears are incredible animals. They could go, during the denning period. People call it hibernation. It's technically called carnivorous winter lethargy. That's a lot harder to say than hibernation. So people just say hibernation.
That sounds like me in January. What can I say?
Exactly. And so they actually, during that period of time, they could go for weeks and months without eating or drinking. And so really during a dry spell or having going a couple of days without water is not a big deal for a bear. And they'll find, you'll be amazed how much water you could find even in this area, even though we don't see it. They'll be able to find water.
Some of the water could come from plants and such as that too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And of course then if we're living so close to suburbia, there are going to be swimming pools and bird baths and things like that.
And the sprinkler system works and everything.
Sprinkler system, that sort of, they'll put puddles out on the ground. And then of course it rains, and there'll be some ephemeral ponds that'll show up.
Excellent. Okay, Mike, they're ephemeral ponds. They get a little water. They get water from the sprinkler system. They can feed on bird feeders and dog food left out, and of course the garbage cans and such as that. Okay, but what can people do so not to attract bears?
Yeah, this is really the issue that Florida Fish and Wildlife has with lots of human-wildlife conflicts, particularly bears. It really is about the attractant. The birdseed you talked about, the dog food, and really the garbage. Garbage is our #1 issue in the state. It accounts for almost 40% of our problems, our phone calls that come in to the agency. And really, it's a simple thing to do. You just keep it away from the bears. So if you have a bear coming around, he's getting your garbage, secure your garbage can either in a garage or a shed. We have things online on how to develop wooden sheds you can put on the side of your house. There's even commercially made garbage cans that are bear resistant. You can put them in, and lots of the cities and counties are now thinking about not only creating allowing people, but they're also creating ordinances to say that we should be doing this to protect neighbors and the community as a whole, not to have bears wandering through. So really, it's just about keeping those foods away from bears. And as soon as you do that, most times bears move on. And it's very similar to things like raccoons. If you have food outside, raccoons come in, and you take that up, raccoons leave. Very same thing. Anything that your dog, cat will eat, a bear will eat as well. And if you just keep that away from them, most times the bears just move on, and everything works out. So that's for residential.
Yeah.
In a place like Deltona, it's actually kind of unique because we do have businesses interspersed throughout the urban area. Dumpsters are a little more complicated because you can't just take your dumpster and put it into your garage. But we have a couple of clever ways of securing dumpsters. Some actually get replaced with metal sliding doors and a metal lid, and it has a little carabiner on the side that clasps the side doors. That works really well. They use them in the state parks nearby and keeps all the bears out. Now there's a new plastic lid that's reinforced, so you just change out your old plastic lid, put a new plastic lid on, has metal around it, and you put the lock bar on. The bears can't get into them that way. So it seems like every month we have somebody new thinking about how to keep bears and other wildlife out of garbage.
Okay, in Deltona, I know we require that commercial dumpsters have like a wall around it and a gate. Does that? To me, that has always just been an aesthetic thing.
It is.
Okay, I didn't think the bear would.
Right.
Okay.
And the bears don't care about the wall at all. I mean, they can climb. You take a look at any one of these pine trees. They can climb this pine tree in a matter of seconds. A wall or a fence or a gate like that is nothing for a bear to climb over, especially if they're hungry, if they want to get into it.
So it just gets him up to where he can lift the lid a little easier.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, sure.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take for example. You're out taking a walk in the evening, or you're out taking the garbage out, or you've gone out to pick up the newspaper and it's garbage pickup day, etc. All these things.
Sure.
And suddenly you have an encounter with a bear. What should you do? Expound on this.
Very good. And human safety, as far as Florida Fish and Wildlife concerned, is paramount, obviously. So what we recommend people to do is, one, stay calm. Panicking does nobody any good. And so if you stay calm and you make yourself look big, put your hands above your head, talk in a calm voice to say, "Hey, bear," and slowly back away from the bear. Most times that bear is going to see you, freak out, and run away. But sometimes they just kind of freeze and they watch you. And so the best thing for you to do, let the bear know you're there, talk to him in a calm voice, and slowly back away into your house or your car, or find some way to back away. And then really what you have to do after that is, if the bear was in your garbage or the reason why the bear was there, it's going to be up to you to take care of that so you don't have that happen over and over again. If you're leaving an attractant out, like your garbage or dog food or something, and you keep running into a bear, you're going to have to figure out a different way you're going to have to keep your garbage secure until the morning of pickup, or you're going to have to feed your dogs or cats in a different way, so you don't just keep running into, and it's not even just about you, but about your neighbors as well. I mean, we live in a society, and if you're attracting a bear, you're the only one on your street attracting a bear in, you know, you're putting everybody else sort of in jeopardy as well. And remember, bears are wild animals, and they can be dangerous. But for the most part, they're just hungry, looking for a really quick and easy meal, and that's usually garbage or dog food or bird seed.
Okay, you mentioned garbage cans that were bear resistant. I'm going to take for granted that the word resistant was a very important word in that.
Yes.
Because I don't think at this point there's no commercial or made bear proof.
Yeah.
Bears are strong animals.
Yeah, sure. So yes, it's a very carefully chosen word, resistant, because there are some very clever bears in the world, and they have figured out they're very, very smart animals, and they like to tinker with things, and you know, nothing could ever be fully bear proof. I mean, maybe, you know, you could weld your garbage can completely shut, but that doesn't make it very useful to you.
Yeah, to put garbage in.
You can't use your garbage can, so the bear can't get in it, you can't get in it, then that's effective. That may be bear proof. But the point is you can never have anything that's going to be useful to a human, putting their garbage in and out every day like we do, able to be picked up by a waste management company, you know, dumped, and be bear resistant. It's impossible to make one that is 100% across the board.
Right.
And so what we do is we play to percentages. And so it's got to be easy for people to use. It's got to be designed so the truck can use it. And it's got to be just bear resistant enough that only the most clever of bears can figure it out.
Okay, so what you're looking at here then is bears, number one, want to get into the garbage fairly quickly.
Sure.
And fairly easily, because they're looking for calories.
Exactly
okay,
right.
If they're burning more calories trying to get into a garbage can, okay, then they're going to get out of that garbage can. It becomes too much of a hassle
Absolutely,
for them.
and that's what we call a cost-benefit analysis that all wild things do. If it's going to take me more time and energy to get into this to get my food, it's not worth it. And so that's exactly right. If a bear, you know, bears are smart enough to be lazy. So they'll walk down your street and they'll just tip over your can. And if your can opens up and spills its contents, they're going to stop and eat it. But if your can is locked shut and they tip it over and it doesn't open, they're just going to go to the next can. And so eventually they'll just keep going down the line and figure out which one's the one to get into. It's going to cost them the least amount of energy.
Okay, so I guess too, bears can get, if it's dog food out, if it's a bird feeder with seed, if it's a garbage can that easily tips over and the garbage spills out, I guess they can become somewhat possessive of that feeding cycle of eating there on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And to me, that sounds like something they might want to defend.
Absolutely, it can turn into that. What we call habituation and food condition. Now, habituation is basically where a bear comes in and he doesn't care about the people or the cars. He's kind of ignoring all that. That's not necessarily bad. We don't like that, but it's not necessarily bad. A food conditioned bear, though, that is when we actually start to get very concerned, because they can become human safety threats. And that's where a bear is coming out, finding that one garbage can or finding that one neighbor who says they're not feeding the bear, but they are, either intentionally or unintentionally. And then they're coming into the neighborhood trying to seek that out. And they can become pretty defensive and sometimes even aggressive when they're trying to get to the food source that is stable for them.
Okay, possessive, aggressive, those are not normal bear behavior.
Right.
What would we look for in normal bear behavior?
Sure.
Especially in an encounter between a person or a person, let's say, with a dog too. Let's do the person, then a person with a dog.
Sure. You know, aggressive defensive behavior probably does occur in the wild with other bears, but we're talking about bears and humans now. And that is not what we find acceptable. That really is what we're working towards avoiding at all costs.
But it's not the norm either, is it?
It's not the norm for humans. The generally bears, when they see people, a wild bear is going to run. They don't really want to be around people. But as they start getting some food and they start getting used to people, and really people start getting used to bears.
Yeah.
So that habituation goes both ways. Bears start getting used to people. people start getting used to humans, and then you know, that tends to become a recipe for disaster because everybody's really not thinking anymore. And so you know, generally good bear behavior is a bear that when you clap your hands or bang a pot and pan together, they run and they don't want anything to do with you. If they stand there and look at you and they're eating out of your bird seed or something like that, now they're on a path that could really lead to their demise, because you know, people don't want to have bears around, and if they become too bad and somewhat aggressive towards humans, the agency FWC has to take some action to keep people safe, and you know, and really most of the time it really ends unfortunately for bears in that situation. Dogs though, that's a whole nother subject, because bears and dogs are just natural enemies. They just don't like each other. And so if you're outside and you're walking your dog, you should be alert. The dog should be on a leash. A classic example of a bear-dog issue would be the bear is running around you, let's say a trail like this. It runs up around the corner, startles a bear, the bear and the dog start to tussle, and then what happens, the bear comes running back towards you. And then even though you may have the most faithful dog in the world, he's going to run right by you. Right? And the bear is going to not see the dog anymore. He's going to see you standing in the trail, waiting for the bear to basically plow you over. Okay, and so so really keep your dogs on a leash anytime you're out in the woods. If you're walking in a neighborhood, having small dogs, if you see a bear, pick your small dog up. Keep it close to you and make the same exact gestures, hey bear, and slowly back away. If you start to have a bear dog fight, you engaging in that fight, trying to break it up, almost always ends with the person getting hurt. And so you'll be surprised how good dogs are
agile,
jumping around and avoiding getting hurt by the bear. So don't put yourself in between the dog, but really the best defense is to be aware of your surroundings. If you're walking at night or at dusk, carry bear spray. That's actually something we're pushing very hard. Florida Fish and Wildlife has got all kinds of advertisements and things going on, you know, out at our check stations, where we want hunters and hikers and even people in neighborhoods to start carrying bear spray. And if you see a bear and the bear is approaching you and is not stopping, using the bear spray is very effective. So you know, keeping an eye out on your surroundings is the best thing to do.
Yeah, the bear spray, the red pepper spray, that type of thing. Okay, it is very effective. I mean, I was in a sporting goods store not too awfully long ago, and some person picked one up and wondered if it would work and just sprayed a little bit of it.
Really?
And they basically had to evacuate the entire store. Everybody in there, you know, the ice streaming and everything like that. There's people all the way at the other end of the store like that trying to get away. So I could see where this would be a major item of protection.
It's non-lethal, and it's natural, and so we recommend it. You know, it is definitely something, if you're walking in the woods, hiking, fishing, hunting, or even in your neighborhood, we recommend buying a can, especially if you live in bear country, and then having it on you.
Okay. If you have an encounter with a bear, if you're having real problems with a bear, now when I say real problems, not necessarily just knock over the trash can, something like that, but an aggressive bear, that type of thing, who do you call?
Sure.
Who do you call?
Okay, so we do on occasion have bears that do pretty bad things. You know, they'll break into houses. Amazingly, we've had a couple of bears over the last couple of years that figured out how to use the lever door handles. You know, the ones, they'll just put them in and they'll go in, they'll be standing in the middle of the living room when people wake up in the morning, and you know, really that's unacceptable. And so we don't want that to
sorry,
happen.
Mike. Okay. I can imagine.
You'd be surprised. Exactly. You'd be surprised.
I haven't had my coffee yet. Okay, I can't handle this.
Right, exactly. If something like that happens, and the bear does, you know, run away and everything has settled down, you really need to call Florida Fish and Wildlife.
First thing, put a deadbolt on that door, okay?
Yeah, you should probably keep your door locked for multiple reasons, but in particular, if you have bears in the area, you know, and sometimes they'll break a window and come in, so you'd be surprised how you know, how they can be pretty clever to get even in the houses and sheds and things like that. We consider that a public safety threat. We don't
Okay.
want bears coming into houses and destroying things like that. So you really need to call Florida Fish and Wildlife, and we will do everything in our power to try to rectify that situation. You know, giving you technical advice on how this doesn't happen again. But really, your first call needs to be to one of the regional office, and that regional office for Deltona is in Ocala.
Okay.
You know, we could put that number, you know, on the bottom of the
Probably on the bottom of the screen right
Sure.
here. Okay, yeah. All right. Very good. Mike, thank you very much. We've had a
welcome.
great discussion on bears today. Okay, and we look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Okay, great. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Bye-bye.